Hello, our video is on solving one-step equations. Well, let's start by taking a couple of notes. First of all, a solution to an equation is the value of the variable that makes the equation true. And in order to solve an equation, it is necessary to isolate the variable. In other words, get the variable all by itself. Alright, so here we have a couple of equations that can be solved using one step. The first equation, our variable is x, and if we subtract 10 from x, we get the answer of 4. Now, in order to isolate our variable, to get the x all by itself, we need to get rid of the numbers that are around it. And so here, there's a minus 10. That's 10 is being subtracted from x. So to get rid of the minus 10, what we're going to do is we're going to always do the opposite operation. Okay? So we'll do the opposite of the operations that are being done to the variable, and that will undo them. So the opposite of minus 10 would be plus 10. Okay, if I take negative 10 or minus 10 and I add 10, I'm going to get 0, and that 10 will go away, and I'll just have x all by itself. Now, whatever I do to one side of the equation, though, I must do to the other side to keep the equation balanced. So I'm going to add 10 to the other side also. And so that gives me then x all by itself, because again, negative 10 plus 10 is 0, so that goes away. X equals, and then I have 4 plus 10. The answer is 14. So this is the value of the variable that makes the equation true. 14 minus 10 equals 4. All right, the next equation. R is our variable, and 0.4 is being added. So we're going to do the opposite. What would be the opposite of adding 0.4? That's right, it'd be subtracting 0.4. So I'll subtract 0.4 from both sides of the equation to keep it balanced. And I'll end up with R all by itself, because again, 0.4 plus or minus 0.4 is 0, so that goes away. And then over here, I get 0.3 is the difference. And so that's the value of the variable that makes the equation true. R equals 0.3. All right, here are two more equations that can be solved in one step. The first equation, the variable is w, and notice that there's a negative 2 in front of it. That means that w is being multiplied by negative 2. All right, how would I undo multiplication? What is the opposite of multiplying? Well, if you said dividing, you're right. So if I divide both sides of the equation by negative 2, that would get me the variable all by itself. Because negative 2 divided by negative 2 is positive 1. And so I just have 1w. Here, 13 divided by negative 2, I can leave that the way it is or write it as a decimal. I'm going to go ahead and write it as a decimal. 13 divided by negative 2 is negative 6.5, negative 6.5. That's the value of the variable that makes this equation true. If you took negative 6.5 and multiplied it by negative 2, you would get positive 13. Okay, look at the next equation. Our variable is x. It's being divided by 8. So what is the opposite of dividing by 8? If you said multiplying by 8, you're correct. So let's multiply both sides by 8. And if you like, you could write as 8 over 1. But anyway, the 8's are going to cancel each other out, and I have 1x, or just x by itself. Okay? And now 48 times 8 would give me my answer. Okay, which is 384. Okay, and it works. We could check it with the calculator. 384 divided by 8 is equal to 48. All right, here are two more equations. Here we have the variable y, and it's being multiplied by 5/9, and that's going to equal 35. Again, I want to undo what's being done to the variable. Now, when we multiply by a fraction, what we're really doing is we're multiplying by the numerator and dividing by the denominator. So to do this in one step, what we want to do is whenever you have a fraction that's being multiplied by the variable, you can undo that fraction by multiplying by its reciprocal. See that? If I take 5/9 and multiply it by 9/5, see how everything cancels? The 9's cancel and the 5's cancel, and I get y all by itself. Oops. Okay, so that's what I want to do here. I want to multiply both sides by 9/5. And I'm going to cancel 5 into 35. It goes 7 times. And now 7 times 9 is 63. So y equals 63 is the value of the variable that makes the equation true. And you can always check it. You can go 63 times 5, then divide by 9. You should get 35. All right, look at the next equation. Our variable is b, and -8 is being added to it. Well, since -b is being added to it, or excuse me, -8 is being added to b, let's do the opposite of adding a -8, which would be adding a +8. And so -8 plus 8 is 0, so I get b all by itself, and then 12 plus 8 is 20, so b equals 20 is the solution. So how are you doing on these? They making sense? All right, let's try a couple more. Here our variable is b, and look what's being added, -3/4. So again, let's do the opposite. Let's add a +3/4. Add that to both sides. And so that will cancel out and make 0. We get b by itself. And then over here I have 5/4 plus 3/4. That equals 8/4. And 8/4 reduces to 2. All right, our last one, x is being multiplied by 1/6. So let's undo the opposite of multiplying by a 6, which would be, let's multiply by reciprocal, like we did on the previous page. Let's multiply by 6/1, because that will cancel out the 6's. And then over here I can multiply by 6/1, or just 6. And I'll get x equals 102 times 6, which is 612. And again, you can check it. 612 divided by 6 does equal 102. All right, that's all for today's lesson. Thank you for listening, and as always, remember, read some books.